There's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer literally becomes a sugar hoarder and thinks he's going to make millions off it. Yeah, that really happened. If you've been watching The Simpsons long enough, you know they've had their fair share of strange, unexplainable, what am I watching moments.
Coming right up, Santa's little Homer.
Today we're going through the weirdest episodes of The Simpsons history. And not just kind of weird, we're talking about the kind of weird that makes you pause and ask, who thought this was a good idea? Starting off with The Principal and the Pauper, which, no joke, almost ruined the show. So this episode comes out of nowhere and says that Principal Skinner, the guy we've been watching since season 1, isn't actually Principal Skinner. He's just some random guy named Armin Tamzarian, who took over Skinner's identity after the real one went missing in the war.
Seymour? Is that you?
It's treated like a huge, serious reveal, and the whole town goes along with it, until the real Skinner comes back.
Get your hands off me!
Please, Mom.
You too, stranger!
I'm your son.
But then everyone decides they like the fake Skinner better, and literally tie the real one to a train and exile him.
And we salute you for it. Now don't come back.
And then Judge Snyder declares that nobody is allowed to mention it again. Like, what? This is Simpsons canon, and they just bury it. Even the creators later said, this episode was a mistake, but it's forever in the series.
This is Barack Obama.
Is this a prank?
Nope.
Coming in next is Homer's Odyssey, which might not seem super weird at first, but really think about it. It's only the third episode of the whole series, and it ends with Homer almost committing suicide.
Boy, this intersection is dangerous. Someone ought to put a stop sign here.
The show was still trying to figure itself out, but wow, this one gets dark and strange. Homer loses his job at the plant, thinks he's a failure to his family, and writes a whole note before heading to a bridge.
I am an utter failure, and you'll be better off without me.
Then a random moment with a falling baby somehow gives him purpose, and he decides to become a safety inspector instead. The tone is all over the place. It starts out kind of wacky, then suddenly it's deadly serious, and it's back to goofy again. It's like the show didn't know if it was a sitcom or a dark family drama yet.
Homer 1, Nanny State 0.
Another one that makes this list is The Day the Violence Died. This episode tries to explain the origin of Itchy and Scratchy, which seems like a normal idea, but halfway through it turns into this meta lawsuit about cartoon copyright, and it ends with The Simpsons inventing an entirely different cartoon character named Lester.
What the hell is going on?
Then the show pretends that Lester somehow saves the day off screen, and it ends with Bart and Lisa being confused, and honestly, so are we. The episode tries to be a parody of old-time animation politics, but it's just full of these strange detours that don't really go anywhere. It's also one of the only times the show acknowledges its own cartoon status so directly. Speaking of cartoons inside cartoons, there's the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show. This one is actually really smart satire about networks adding unnecessary characters to long-running shows. But it's also weird because of how directly it mocks The Simpsons itself.
Hey, that wasn't supposed to happen. Those Sphinx double-crossed me.
They literally add a new character named Poochie, who's designed to be cool and extreme, but everyone instantly hates him. Homer voices him. The show flops, and they kill Poochie off by just sending him back to his home planet with a clearly fake animation.
Can somebody tell me what the hell is going on? Midge, help me out here.
Quiet. You're missing the jokes.
And the whole time, the writers are making fun of the fact that fans were complaining about the show getting stale. It's weird in that it's one of the most self-aware episodes ever made, but also because the whole plot is just one big in-joke for the writers. Not everyone watching it as a kid would have picked up on all that.
I'm the worst Poochie ever.
No, it's not your fault, Dad. You did fine.
Now let's talk about Homer's enemy. This is the one where the show stops being a comedy for a second and becomes a full-on character study.
Could you explain your model, young man?
What's to explain? He's an idiot.
Pipe down.
We meet Frank Grimes, a guy who actually lives in the real world. He's smart, hardworking, and has had a rough life. But he's stuck working next to Homer, who's lazy, dumb, and somehow has a perfect life.
That got it.
Grimes slowly loses his mind, trying to understand how someone like Homer can succeed. And then he just dies. He electrocuted himself by accident while mocking Homer.
Look at me! I'm a worthless employee, just like Homer Simpson.
And the episode ends with Homer sleeping through his funeral. That's it. No lesson, no emotional wrap-up, just death. It's probably one of the most unsettling episodes in the whole series. And the fact that it's played for laughs makes it even weirder. And while we're talking about death, the Ned Zone from the Treehouse of Horror, the 15th, is another one that deserves a spot here. In this segment, Ned Flanders gets the power to see how people will die just by touching them, which already feels like a whole different show. But it gets darker when Ned sees that Homer will cause a nuclear meltdown that kills everyone in Springfield.
What have I done? I've changed the future for the worst.
The story keeps getting more and more intense until Homer gets shot by Ned. And then the nuke still goes off anyway.
I wonder if I could blow up heaven.
It's supposed to be a parody of the Dead Zone, but there's barely any comedy here. It's just straight up disturbing. And that's the thing with these Halloween episodes. They're non-canon, but they still go really hard into horror in ways that feel out of place for a comedy show.
When we get home, let's you and I bump muzzles.
One that's weird in a completely different way is EI Annoying Grunt, and one where Homer starts a tomato-tobacco hybrid called Tomacco. The whole setup is Homer running away from a duel and moving his family to a farm.
Holy moly, we can't stay here. It's full of raccoons.
He ends up using nuclear waste to grow mutant crops, and Tomacco somehow becomes addictive even to animals. There's a scene where a bunch of cows break into the house like zombies just to get a taste. Then the whole thing ends up with the house being destroyed by a helicopter. The pacing, the jokes, the plot, it all feels like a fever dream, but somehow it's not a Treehouse of Horror segment. This actually happened in the regular timeline.
Hey, props to Mindy on the grab. Booyah!
Another regular episode that feels anything but normal is the Genesis Tub. This is technically part of a Halloween episode too, but it's so bizarre it stands out on its own. Lisa accidentally creates a miniature universe inside a petri dish when Bart shocks her with a science project. Over time, this micro-civilization evolves and sees Lisa as their god. Meanwhile, Bart is seen as the devil.
What the heck?
It gets so intense that the tiny people shrink Lisa down into their world just to protect her. She ends up stuck there while Bart wins the science fair. That's the end. She's just there now. It's one of those plots that feels like it should belong in a Twilight Zone episode, not The Simpsons.
Oh, great. Stuck in this lousy tub for the rest of my life.
Then we've got Make Room for Lisa, which starts off like a normal story about Lisa and Homer bonding, but quickly turns weird when they both go inside sensory deprivation tanks. Lisa has an out-of-body experience and floats through Springfield, watching her family from above. Homer, meanwhile, ends up inside a fantasy where he's a baby being held by his mother. The whole episode dips into surreal dream sequences without much warning, and by the end, they both act like nothing even happened.
Not to me, Dad.
The transitions are so jarring that it's hard to keep track of what's real and what's not. Let's not forget that 90s show where the show just decides to retcon Homer and Marge's backstory and say they were in a grunge band in the 1990s.
I'm taking our music to the next level. Guitar rock utilizing nihilist grunge energies.
This one was weird not just because of the content, but because it broke the show's own timeline in a way that didn't make sense. Suddenly, Homer was hanging out with Kurt Cobain-type musicians, and Marge was dating a pretentious professor. Nothing about it fits with what we already knew.
What the hell's going on here? Chanting?
Homer, you're embarrassing me.
Fans were super confused. It's like the writers just wanted to do a 90s parody and didn't care how much it messed with the story. But what makes it even weirder is that the episode plays it totally straight, as if we're just supposed to forget everything we knew before.
The thing that stood between us, the 90s, is almost over.
And then there's Saddlesore Galactica, which might be the most random episode ever made. In this one, the Simpsons get a horse, enter it in races, and discover that jockeys are actually evil elf-like creatures who live underground.
We are the jockeys, jockeys are we.
Yeah, seriously. There's a whole secret society of jockeys that sing songs, threaten Homer, and plan to take over. And it's just the end. Nobody talks about the fact that they uncovered a magical species. They just go right back to normal life like it didn't happen.
Or was it just a wonderful dream?
No dream. Lose the race, fat boy.
This one gets brought up by a lot of fans because it was one of the first episodes where people really felt like the show had jumped the shark. And speaking of shark jumping, Simpson Safari takes the family to Africa, where they basically just bounce from one ridiculous situation to the next. Getting chased by hippos, joining tribes, finding a diamond mine. It's all played for laughs, but the logic of the episode just completely falls apart.
Look at me! I'm a scientist!
There's a scene where a monkey slaps Homer in the face with a fish. That's the level we're at here. The entire plot feels like it was written just to see how many wacky jungle gags they could fit into 22 minutes. But for some reason, it still aired during a time when the show was trying to act like it had serious episode mixed in. Now, these might all seem strange in their own ways, but things only get more bizarre from here, because the next set of episodes completely ignore logic, tone, and character consistency to go full-on surreal. Let's get into that next. Another episode that felt like it was written in a fever dream was The Computer War Menace Shoes. It began with Homer creating a website where he posted fake conspiracy theories. He thought it was just a joke until one of his posts accidentally revealed a real secret.
Let go of me. I'm innocent.
Almost instantly, he was kidnapped and dropped onto a mysterious island filled with doubles, hidden cameras, and talking balloons. The entire second half of the episode mimicked an old British show that most viewers didn't know, making it all the more confusing.
Of course. It's so simple. Wait, no it's not. It's needlessly complicated.
There were scenes of Homer being followed, tested, hypnotized. One scene had him trapped in a room with a floating egg telling him to submit. Everything looked muted and empty, as if the color had been drained from the show.
I am not a number. I am a man. And don't you ever... Oh wait, I'm number 5.
He escaped by bouncing on a trampoline and landed back in Springfield. No one believed his story. The episode never resolved how he found the island or why anyone took him there. It just floated away like a dream you try to explain but can't.
Oh, it's wonderful. Truly God's country.
There was also a different kind of weirdness in The Principal and the Pauper. This one didn't use horror or mystery. It just shattered everything people thought they knew. The story revealed that Principal Skinner wasn't really Skinner at all. His real name was Armin Tamzarian, and he had taken the identity of the real Seymour Skinner after a war mission. The actual Skinner returned, and for a while, it looked like everything would change.
I'm an imposter.
But then the town decided they liked Armin better, so they tied the real Skinner to a chair, put him on a train, and sent him away. Judge Snyder ruled that Armin would legally be Skinner forever, and no one would ever speak of this again.
Well, from now on, you're gonna see a new Seymour Skinner.
Oh, no, we won't.
That was the ruling. Literally never bring it up again, and the show didn't. From that point on, every time Skinner appeared, it was technically Armin, but no one acted like anything had changed. It left a strange feeling behind. The world of Springfield had been rewritten, and the audience was just expected to follow along. Then came one of the many still argue broke the show's own timeline. It wasn't set in the future or the past, and it didn't involve alternate universes. It was just a flashback episode called That 90s Show. It told the story of Homer and Marge during the early 1990s, with Homer starting a grunge band and Marge dating her college professor.
He who's tired of Weird Al is tired of life.
The problem was, for years, the show had already shown flashbacks of Homer and Marge growing up in the 70s and getting married early, but none of that matched what this new episode showed. Suddenly, Homer was the frontman of a band that sounded like Nirvana. He wrote songs, toured clubs, got famous. Marge was in a campus romance with a man who slowly became possessive and demanding. It was like stepping into a completely different show. Even visually, it didn't look like the same Springfield. There was no acknowledgement that this conflicted with past episodes. It just rewrote everything. By the end, Homer lost the band, Marge dumped the professor, and they got back together like nothing ever happened.
This book sucks so much.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. Otherwise, you're just as weird as these episodes of The Simpsons.